By the end of this video, you'll understand why true awakening isn't a gentle ascent into light, but a courageous descent into your own hidden depths. You'll see how facing your shadow, not escaping it, unlocks genuine freedom and wholeness. The discomfort, confusion, and pain that often accompany awakening aren't signs of failure, but essential steps on the path to self-realization. Most importantly, you'll gain practical insight into transforming your relationship with your own darkness, so you can stop running from yourself and start living with clarity, humility, and compassion. Imagine this: you're searching for enlightenment, expecting a sunrise. Instead, you find yourself at the edge of a vast, unlit forest. The air is thick, the path uncertain, and every instinct tells you to turn back. But what if the only way forward is through the shadows? What if the light you seek is waiting on the other side of everything you've tried to avoid? Here's the uncomfortable truth. The journey of awakening isn't a shortcut to bliss. It's not a ticket out of pain or a guarantee of perpetual peace. In fact, the first steps often feel like unraveling, not rising. And the cost of turning away from this path is steep, because what you avoid in yourself doesn't disappear. It quietly shapes your choices, your relationships, and your sense of self, keeping you trapped in patterns you can't quite name. Pause for a moment and ask yourself, what have you been avoiding in your own life? What parts of your story remain locked behind closed doors? This isn't just theory. Throughout history, mystics, psychologists, and seekers have described the same paradox. The light of awareness doesn't just illuminate what is beautiful, it exposes what is hidden, denied, or feared. Only by facing these shadows can you truly wake up to who you are. Here's what we'll explore. First, we'll uncover the myth of awakening as effortless bliss and reveal why discomfort is a necessary teacher. Next, we'll journey into the heart of the shadow, the parts of ourselves we'd rather not see, and discover how they hold the key to transformation. Then we'll examine the tricky ways the ego resists this process and how humility emerges from disillusionment. Finally, we'll see how embracing our darkness leads to compassion, connection, and a new kind of freedom. Let's begin with the myth that awakening is all light, love, and serenity. It's a seductive idea that with enough meditation, positive thinking, or spiritual practice, you'll rise above suffering and float through life untouched by hardship. But if you've ever stepped onto this path, you know the reality is far messier. Awakening doesn't lift you out of your pain. It brings you face to face with it. The first sign that something is shifting often isn't peace. It's discomfort. The stories you've told yourself start to crumble. The roles you've played feel like masks. Life, once predictable, becomes mysterious, even unsettling. The world seems less solid, less certain. This is the thinning of the veil, the moment when you sense a deeper, why is this so common? Because awakening isn't about escaping your darkness. It's about meeting it. When you choose to wake up, you open doors inside yourself that you thought were sealed forever. Behind those doors live your insecurities, your anger, your guilt, your unhealed wounds. These are the parts of you that don't fit the image of spiritual perfection, yet they are the very material of transformation. Take a breath and reflect. When have you felt most unsettled on your journey? What emotions or memories surfaced that you wished would just go away? That discomfort is not a sign you're failing. It's a sign you're beginning. Every insight peels back a new layer. Every breakthrough reveals not just light, but shadow. The pain you feel is the growing pain of expansion. But the myth persists that awakening solves everything, that pain vanishes, that you become immune to fear or sadness. This is spiritual bypassing, using lofty ideas to avoid the real work. True awakening doesn't erase pain. It teaches you to see it clearly. It doesn't fix every problem. It invites you to be present with them. It doesn't offer escape. It offers understanding. For many, this realization is the first heartbreak on the path. You expected ascension, but what you get is dismantling. You don't rise immediately. First, you unravel. Now let's talk about the ego, the carefully constructed identity that says, "This is who I am." The ego craves praise, fears rejection, and constantly compares. It doesn't like being questioned, and it certainly doesn't like being deconstructed. But when awakening arrives, it doesn't feed your ego. It exposes it. Suddenly, you see that the you thought you were is just a collection of beliefs, wounds, desires, and defenses. The spiritual journey, if co-opted by the ego, becomes another way to feel superior. I am more enlightened than others. But real awakening shatters this pride. It shows you that you are not a special, chosen soul floating above the rest. You are not better because you meditate, or pure because you've read 100 spiritual books. You are not separate from the world's chaos. You are a part of it. As this illusion of spiritual superiority dissolves, something else emerges: humility. The soul remembers its place, not above others, but among them, not to be praised, but to serve. This moment of disillusionment hurts. It strips away your illusions about the world and about yourself. You see how much of your identity was built on fantasy, how many beliefs were borrowed, not earned, how many truths were just safety blankets in the dark. Pause and consider. What beliefs about yourself are you starting to question? Where has your ego tried to protect you from discomfort? Disillusionment is not failure, it's purification. It's the sacred fire that burns away all that is false. In that fire, something purer is revealed. When consciousness expands, it doesn't just show you light, it casts a spotlight on your shadow, all the parts you've denied: anger, jealousy, shame, grief. They come rushing forward like ghosts you thought were long dead. The spiritual path isn't about finding your light. It's about finding the courage to sit with your darkness. This is what Carl Jung called the shadow, the unconscious parts of ourselves we refuse to see, the traits we deem unacceptable, the memories we've buried, the emotions we've labeled wrong. Ignoring the shadow doesn't erase it. It just drives it deeper, where it quietly manipulates your choices, your relationships, your worldview. Here's the paradox. Inside the shadow lies your greatest power. The energy it takes to suppress your shadow is the same energy you could use to transform your life. That's your vital force, and it's being drained by repression. Here's the turning point. Awakening doesn't mean destroying the ego. It means seeing through it. It means recognizing its games, its fears, its defenses, and choosing not to be ruled by them. When you stop identifying with the ego's story, you create space for something deeper to emerge. This is the moment of humility. When the illusion of specialness dissolves, you realize you are not above anyone. You are not below anyone. You are simply human, flawed, vulnerable, and worthy of love. This humility is not weakness, it's strength. It's the foundation of real connection. Take a moment to reflect. Where has your ego kept you separate from others? What would it feel like to let go of the need to be special? As you continue this journey, you'll notice a shift. The world becomes less about proving yourself and more about understanding yourself. You stop chasing perfection and start embracing wholeness. You realize that every part of you, Light and shadow, strength and weakness belongs. And this is where the deepest transformation happens. When you stop running from your darkness, you reclaim the energy you once used to hide. You become more present, more authentic, more alive. Your relationships deepen. Your compassion grows. You see yourself and others with new eyes. But the journey doesn't end here. The process of awakening is ongoing. Every day brings new opportunities to face your shadow, to question your assumptions, to choose humility over pride, presence over avoidance. So, what's the final payoff? It's not a life free from pain or struggle. It's a life lived with eyes wide open. It's the freedom that comes from no longer fearing your own depths. It's the peace that arises when you stop pretending and start embracing all of who you are. By now, you've glimpsed the truth. Awakening is not an escape from life. It's a deeper engagement with it. It's not about becoming perfect. It's about becoming whole. It's not about rising above your humanity. It's about honoring it. So here's your invitation. Next time you feel discomfort, confusion, or pain, don't turn away. Lean in. Ask what your shadow is trying to teach you. Remember, the parts you most want to avoid are often the keys to your greatest growth. If you're ready to stop running from yourself and start living with courage, humility, and compassion, you're already on the path. The journey is not easy, but it is sacred. If you see yourself as a seeker, a questioner, someone willing to face the truth, no matter how uncomfortable, let this be your call to action. Embrace your shadow. Welcome your discomfort. Use every trigger as a mirror. The world needs more people who are whole, not perfect. And if you're curious about how to turn these insights into daily practices, how to work with your shadow in real time, how to transform your relationships through self-awareness, and how to build resilience for the challenges ahead, make sure to join the next exploration. Because the journey of awakening is just beginning, and the next step is always the most important one. So what if you stopped running? What if, instead of fearing the shadow, you learned to face it? That's where real transformation begins. Shadow work isn't a side quest on the spiritual journey. It is the journey. Until you've made peace with your darkness, you're not really free. You're just pretending. When you finally confront your shadow, when you realize you are still capable of envy, resentment, judgment, arrogance, fear, it shatters your self-image. The spiritual your shadow often shows up in your relationships. That friend who triggers you, that partner who gets under your skin, that stranger who sparks irrational emotion, they're mirrors. The traits you can't stand in others are often traits you haven't fully owned in yourself. The reactions that catch you off guard aren't random. They're reflections. If you're brave enough to look closely, they'll show you what you've refused to see. Reflect for a moment. Who in your life triggers strong reactions in you? What might they be revealing about your own hidden patterns? This is the gift of the shadow. It doesn't just challenge you, it teaches you. The shadow is not an enemy, but a forgotten part of yourself, a hidden reservoir of truth and power. But there's another layer, the way our shadow hides in plain sight in other people. This is where projection comes into play, one of the most uncomfortable but enlightening mechanisms of the psyche. What we reject within ourselves, we often see loudly and clearly in others. That irritation you feel when someone is too loud, too arrogant, too needy, sometimes it's not really about them. It's about the part of you that was once silenced, shamed, or denied. Jung called this projection the unconscious act of transferring our repressed feelings, traits, or desires onto someone else. It's easier to judge another than to confront ourselves. But here's the hidden gift. What irritates us can become a mirror, revealing what's unhealed within. When you realize this, your relationships stop being battlegrounds and start becoming classrooms. Every person who triggers you is showing you something about yourself. When you start to recognize this pattern, you begin to shift. Instead of blaming others for your discomfort, you take ownership. You begin to ask, why does this bother me so deeply? What is this reaction really about? In that question lies a portal to self-awareness. Let's pause. Next time you feel triggered, will you dare to look inward instead of outward? Now, integrating the shadow doesn't mean embracing destructive behavior. It doesn't mean justifying cruelty or indulging toxic patterns. It means acknowledging that these energies exist in you, not as dominant traits, but as potentials. Only by recognizing them can you truly neutralize their power. The paradox is simple. What you resist persists. What you deny controls you, but what you bring into the light begins to dissolve. This is why facing the shadow is not just helpful, it's necessary.